A warm welcome to Lost for Words, a podcast exploring the opinions, glories and most interesting stories of guests. I am your host Jason, and this is episode 5. Today's guest is a professional footballer. Izzy Atkinson has recently signed for Celtic Women and joins me on the podcast to speak about her life and career. We discuss her enjoyment of football at a young age while playing in a boys' team, transitioning from semi-pro to full-time professional, as well as representing her country. She also discusses how she has coped moving from Ireland to Scotland during the midst of the current pandemic. Izzy speaks openly and frankly about all of her experiences, and I'm sure this will be a good one. I will speak to you on the other side. A quick housekeeping note before we get started. Please leave a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean or any other platform. It's the best way the podcast can grow and better content can be produced for you, the listener. It's your listening experience that matters the most. But enough from me, now on to today's episode of Lost for Words. How are you? You alright?
Oh, I'm good, I'm great. How are you?
I'm not too bad. You're from Ireland. Whereabouts did you grow up?
I grew up in a little town called Rush in North Dublin. Just off Skerries, most people would know for. It's just a small town, and I lived there my whole life until last month. So, yeah.
How's that been for an adjustment?
I'd say it hasn't been as bad considering I would have been in Dublin City a lot and I would have always been around cities and around people a lot, so it wasn't too much of a change, but it is a bit more hectic over here than it was back home, but I don't mind that anyways. I like the adventures and all the stuff going on every day. So
how early on in your life did you realise you were into football?
Since I was 6 years old, I started playing with a lads team back home in Rush since I was 6. I even have a picture of me when I was 2 years old with a ball in my hand. So I've always wanted to play football since the day I kicked the ball with my dad, my brother, even on the green when I was probably 4 or 5. Since I can remember, it's all I've ever wanted to do is be a footballer. So yeah. But yeah, I was the only girl on it, but I didn't mind.
Would you say girls' football is more popular now at that age compared to what it was when you were 5, 6, 7 years old?
Yeah, 100%. Even the soccer sisters camps and stuff like that have been going on to Aviva the past few years, every year. For I think it's girls aged 6 to 14. Stuff like that I wasn't really aware of when I was younger, but now obviously I'm seeing it, and you can see the more young girls. It's more normal for young girls to be playing football. Like when I was 6 and started playing, I think I knew 1 or 2 other people that were girls that played football, whereas now you'd have loads of pals, and it's just different now, which is good. And I think in the next 10 years and 10 years after that and so on, it's just going to get better and better. So it's good to see the development and more girls playing. Excellent.
So what age were you when you'd started to play sort of organised team football?
6 years old, I started playing straight away. When I was 5, there used to be this thing called the mini leagues on with the club Rush Athletic that I was with when I was younger, but it was just like a week of football called the mini leagues, and it was just like mini tournaments. And obviously I started playing that when I was a bit younger, but officially signed for a club when I was 6, so that would have been 77s I think, in the small girls, and that was when I started. So 6 years old.
So then how old were you when you signed for, is it Shelbourne or Shelbourne? I don't want to pronounce that incorrectly.
Shelbourne, yeah. So obviously that was Women's National League. You have to be 16 to play. And I signed 3 days after my 16th birthday. So I've been playing with them. I played with them 4 years since I was 16 until obviously last year. But I was just really glad I could get in, the youngest you could get in. Made my debut when I was 16 as well. So it was just good to have that experience at a young age, and to, I had one, like the 4 seasons I had with Shelbourne were just, it was unbelievable. And I look back and I want to change the thing. So I'm really glad that I signed for them when I was 16 and stayed with them until I came over here.
So is that like a hard rule in Ireland where you can't sign for them until is 16 the hard age limit?
So you can sign, you can train, but you can't play a game until you're 16. Same with the national team. You have to be 16 to play a game. I think that's just a rule in most. I think it's in most leagues, most countries in football, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's definitely that in Ireland and for the national team as well.
So between 6 and 16, describe your sort of evolution as a young female footballer.
So if you ask anybody who grew up with me, I used to have an Astro around the corner that I would leave my house at 9 o'clock in the morning, not come home for lunch, not come home for breakfast or dinner, nothing. And I'd be home at 7 o'clock in the evening every single day. My mum and dad didn't even used to worry. They'd just be like, she's at the Astro. She's at the Astro. But that's all I used to do growing up as a kid. Like I was a real tomboy. I was not a girly girl. I didn't have much girlfriends. They're all just boys who played football. And yeah, that's all I'd done until I was probably 14, 15. Every day was football. I'd never leave the house without carrying a football in my hand. And I think that even though it's small, it did definitely play its part in like the player I am today, 100%.
Then jumping back on to Shelbourne, do you remember your debut?
I actually can't remember who I came on against because it was so long ago. I think it was Wexford Youths. Because I know I'd come on for friendlies as well, but I think it was officially Wexford Youths I came on against. But yeah, I remember coming on and I was so nervous and stuff, but I look back and you just have to take moments like that because there's no real reason to be nervous. Like you look back and you're like, would you rather be nervous coming on and scared, or would you rather be not in that position? So I just like to, even when I'm nervous for things, I like to just grab hold of that kind of fear and stuff and just overcome it, because I think if you don't feel nerves and stuff like that, then it doesn't mean as much. So, but yeah, I'll always remember it. My dad obviously was there and all the girls were congratulating me, and I made it at 16 as well. So I love to say that I've made it at the youngest age I can make it as well. So
if you had to choose one, what would your fondest memory of your 4 years with them be?
My fondest memory, I wouldn't have any specifics like in really short, but it would probably just be the last season I had there. I was obviously a winger my whole career, and my manager decided to put me as a fullback, so a bit more defensive, but going forward. And I got Player of the Year, and it was just I felt like I really finished my Shelbourne career on a high, because obviously the first year and second year, every year I felt like I just got better and better and better, and I'm glad that I had a really high year to end on a positive. And yeah, I was really proud of myself that year, because it was probably the most successful development in my career, definitely last year.
Brilliant. And playing for Shelbourne, you were called up to the national team for the first time. How far before that did you know that there was a potential of it, or were you caught totally off guard by being asked to go and join the national setup?
I was actually completely off guard. Obviously Colin Bell was the manager at the time, and he was our under 17s Ireland manager as well. So I was in with the Ireland 17s, same time as obviously Colin was the manager of seniors, and I captained us that elite round. And just Colin obviously was our manager at 17, so luckily I could show my ability, and he seen the player I was and was obviously impressed, and then got my call up for the seniors. But I was actually in school when it happened, and my mum and dad called me and was like, you have to come home now. And I was like, and I came home, just walked into the sitting room, and they said nothing and just laughed and smiled, and I was like, what's going on? And they were like, you have to be called up the Ireland seniors. And I just remember I didn't know what to say, but it was one of the best feelings ever, seeing my mum and dad just standing there. They were speechless, they didn't know what to say, but it was the best feeling.
So then after that, that was October, I've got down here, and then the following January, so a couple of months later, is when you'd been called up, and then you actually got on to play. You came on as a sub. What was that like?
I came on in the friendly against Portugal. That was obviously my first appearance. Not competitive though, it was just friendly. But I still would. That would be my debut. But obviously my official debut was the one in June. When I came on against Norway. But the one in January, I think I only came on for like 3 minutes. But I remember when I was going on the pitch and I was running on the pitch, and I just felt really light. Like I felt like I was flying or in air. It just felt so. It was just. I was only on for 3 minutes and I literally ran, I'd say, a few hundred yards and that's it. But I just felt like so light, and I remember just too much emotions, and it was just the best feel. I didn't even know how I felt. It was just unbelievable, and all the girls were over the moon when I came on as well, and they're all so proud. And it's just good to have that support around you, by my family. Then obviously all the girls in the team that have always been by my side. So yeah, it was just one of the best feelings, definitely.
So, am I right in saying there's been 3 separate camps you've been with them? So, say that first one, the friendlies in the October, then you played against in the friendly in January, and then the 2 competitive games in June. Which one of those would you say were your most memorable?
I would say all is memorable in different ways. I remember when I think back to obviously the January one where I was just talking about the friendly against Portugal. That obviously wasn't my official debut, but I just remember that camp. It was just, I felt really, you just have a really good feeling in camp. The place was great. We stayed on a little island just off Portugal, which was so small. I think I only had one airport with like 2 planes. It was just real small, and I always remember staying on that island. And then obviously when you look to June, when I came on against Norway, that was my official competitive debut. That was obviously the highlight, because one of the best days of my life to say I made my debut at 16. And I'll never forget it. I actually got a yellow card coming on the pitch too early. On my competitive debut, I came on, Anya O'Gorman was walking off, and I ran on before she actually came off, and I got a yellow card on my debut. But I look back and
Did the referee give you a yellow card for that? Why?
Yeah, I got a yellow card. For 5 seconds on the pitch, I got a yellow card, and everyone was laughing about it, and they're like, that only you would get that on your debut. But yeah, I look back, it's funny, but it was the best feeling in the world coming on that pitch.
So at that time, across all those times, would you still have been at school?
Yeah, I was still in school the whole time. But obviously in Ireland, it's like fifth year, and then 6th year you do your leaving cert, and then you can choose going to college. So I would have been in 4th year, which is kind of like a transition year where you're all right not to be in. But for 5th year and 6th year, I basically, I was missing, I had to bring my books away, but I was missing probably 50 to 60 days on average for them years. All my teachers were just used to me not being there. So they got used to that. And I always put football above school. My mum and dad had actually told my principal before, sorry, but football comes first. And that was since I was only young, like before I even was in the position I am now. It was always football first, football first. So I'm just glad my mum and dad always did that, because I've had friends in the past where their mums and dads have told them, like, you have to be on top of your schoolwork, not just football. But my mum and dad have always just said football first, don't worry about school. So I'm happy with that. And it hasn't done me any wrong now. So
what I wanted to ask as well was, they call, when you play for the national team, they call that an international cap. Do you actually get given a cap?
I did. I have it at home. It kind of works by, we got a cap for like the whole 2020 year. So I have one at home for 2020 year, and then I obviously have my caps from underage as well. I've represented 15, 16, 17s, 19s and seniors, so I've got a cap for each year at home. I think I should.
So as you reflect on playing for Ireland and playing in Ireland, that entire time, would that have been part-time football?
Yeah, so it would be arguably semi-pro, you could say,
semi-pro,
for Shelbourne, but
right.
Arguably it's not actually set or like on stone as semi-professional, but with the the way we train and the way the league's set up, like you could arguably say it's just not identified as that. But yeah, I would have been just semi, 3 days training a week and then a match at the weekend. So not like I'm doing now. It's obviously full time now, which is what I've always wanted to do. So
like signing with Giulio's agency, was that with a view to getting a full-time move somewhere so that you were a full-time professional?
Yeah, so funny enough, when I signed, I had intentions of like, that's what I want to do in the next year.
Yeah.
And then funny enough, like a few weeks later, obviously Kiva Keenan would be my Irish pal here at Celtic. She got in touch with me and said, she was like, Izzy, have you ever thought of playing for Celtic? And I was like, what? And she was like, basically Fran, our manager here, had asked Kiva like my intentions, what I'm like if I'm like want to be full-time footballer, blah blah blah. And then he got in touch with me himself, and it was mad the way I had signed with obviously my agent, and then had actually gotten in touch with Fran, like as in if I didn't have Giulio, Fran still he still would have gotten in touch with me, but like I still have Giulio here and stuff. But no, people have thought that it was him that had set it up, but we were talking about that's what I want to do, and then luckily it still came anyways. But yeah, I don't know if I explained that very well.
No, so Fran Alonso, the Celtic manager, got in touch with you directly, and it already just so happened that you had an agent anyway?
Yeah, pretty much there. Could have said it like that, yeah.
So what was Fran's discussion with you like? What do you remember? Because that must have been quite nerve-wracking, you getting a phone call from the Celtic manager directly.
Yeah, I remember him texting me and just saying, "Hey, Izzy, would you be able to call, have a quick chat?" And obviously I ran down to my dad. I was like, "Dad, look at this." And then I ended up just ringing him. And I remember I had to actually go on a walk because I was too nervous to sit still talking to him. So I actually went on a walk and talked to him. But then as soon as I was on the phone with him, like he was so easy to talk to. He didn't put any pressure whatsoever. He was just asking simple questions and what I want and stuff like that. And then I obviously called him again after a few days later. But he never like put pressure on me, never anything. And then he just gave his impressions and his thoughts of me as a player. And I just knew straight away, like, I can't say no to this, and it's all I want to do. And I was really like glad that I had Fran there because he helped me a lot before I came here because I had so many questions and so many, not doubts, but just things I was like unsure about and stuff, and he helped me with every single one of them. So yeah, I was really grateful for that.
So you signed for Celtic in February. How long before that had he made contact with you?
So I think it was January, and he didn't call the first time and say like, we want you to sign now. He was literally just calling. He was just like, how are you? Like, what's your plans? Blah blah blah. And then it kind of just developed over it was that's like I said, it was never pressure or anything. But then by the end of January, he asked then if I wanted to come over, and obviously I said yeah straight away.
What happens after that then leads to you actually signing on the dotted line, so to speak?
So I think this will answer the question. Basically, usually you come over to most professional clubs and you do like a week trial or a week, so you know what it's about and you know that you're signing for what you want and stuff like that. But because of Corona, that never happened. So I was kind of like, I was signing this contract a bit out of the loop in a sense, unless I've just seen what, videos and matches that I've seen, training clips. But obviously that's not the same as actually coming and training. So I did take a bit of a risk, not knowing 100% what everything was about here, but I couldn't say no to like, it was too big of an opportunity to say no to. And yeah, it's the best decision I've ever made, and genuinely the best decision I've ever made.
What was it like moving country against the backdrop of the coronavirus pandemic? Did you have to come over yourself, or did Celtic put you up with other players?
So this was something my dad was actually quite worried about. He was like, I don't know if this would be the best time for you to be moving out on your own, blah, blah, blah. But he knew it was going to be fine. He was just a bit worried because obviously it was my first time moving out and stuff like that. And he was just a bit worried because obviously people say Glasgow can be quite a rough city sometimes too. But I mean, every city can be rough. That's what I was saying. But it has been yeah, it's just been mental coming over here during it all. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. Obviously we're training every day, which would be the same anyways. I just can't wait for everything to cool off, and then I can really get a sense of where I'm living and what's around the place I'm living in the city and stuff. I'm staying with 5 of the girls off the team as well. So I'm glad that obviously when my first time away from home, I'm not living on my own, or I'm not living with, it's good to have 5 of the girls off my team now that I'd call family now, and I've only been here a month. So yeah, I'm really, really glad in my situation now.
Yeah, I was going to say that moving country by yourself at any time can be a fairly daunting experience. So was that a house share set up by the club?
Yeah, it's the club set it all up. Before I even came over here, they were like, you'll be staying with 5 of the girls. You won't be on your own. And they also obviously were saying you'll be staying with Kiva. She would have been my pal. I mentioned Kiva Keenan, I think, already, and I've had her as well, which helps. But yeah, I knew before I got over here, like, I'm going to be staying with 5 of the girls. So that was obviously, it made it easier moving away from home before I even got here, that I'd have 5 of the girls with me.
So in terms of off the pitch, you're pretty happy with how you've settled in and how you've gotten on in Glasgow so far?
Yeah, I'm really, really happy. Obviously at home, especially during, the Corona times and COVID-19, everything going on, I'd wake up at home every day, and as in back home in Dublin, and I do my own training and I do everything on my own, but it just wouldn't be it was just so unenjoyable with everything going on. But at least now that I'm over here, the circumstances are still the same, still a pandemic, still lockdown. But I wake up every day and actually have people with me, like friends with me, and then I also have training every day. So it kind of just takes away the bad aspect of lockdown and everything going on, because I'm actually still doing things every day, whereas back home I wasn't. So yeah, I'm really glad to be over here. Like, I'm so happy over here. Every day I wake up, I'm just smiling, so I'm happy.
Amazing. That's what I wanted to ask as well about obviously Celtic Women's, they've gone full time. What is a full time week as a professional, and how does that differ from what you had previously back in Ireland?
So back in Ireland, we only trained 3 days a week and then a match at the weekend, and it was actually 3 days a week my first 3 years of Shells. Last year it was actually only 2 days a week. I think they're back to 3 days now, but it would only be 3-4 days out of 7 max training. Whereas now that I'm over here, it's every single day but Tuesday. Even my first week of preseason here, we trained 9 times, 9 football sessions in my first week here, with 2 double sessions and 1 every other day. And each of them were 2 hours. So it was mental the first week, but it's all I've ever wanted to do. And I would be doing things at home on my own usually anyways. I'd be training, running, kicking the ball on my own and doing that on my own. But now I have my team and everyone to do it with me. So I don't feel any way behind on fitness or anything, but it's just that planned out for you and everything laid out for me that I've never had. And yeah, full time, it really is all I've ever wanted to do. And I'm just so glad that I'm in this situation now.
Excellent. And then when you think about your joining Celtic, when you started training, how soon did you notice a step up or a change in the quality compared to what you had before?
I think one thing I've noticed, not even in just the football sense, but the mentality of training over here is even though we're training every day, you'd think yeah, you can slack off for a minute or two, but you actually have to be 100% switched on in the head every single training every day. Whereas back home, I think with my old clubs, it would be a bit more slower, a bit less serious, less professional. And then just over here, it's just that bit higher in quickness. And then obviously the ability in football as well is just quicker. We move the ball quicker, and you can just feel that level straight away. Since my first training, I felt it straight away. And I was even tired mentally after my first session, not just physically. So
I know you mentioned Fran before, Fran Alonso. even before he came to Celtic, he was as a very highly regarded coach. What has it been like working under him?
So I can't think of the players from the top of my head. He's obviously managed very successful players in both the women and men's game. I can't think of them from the top of my head, but his style of play, obviously he's Spanish as well. His style of play is literally, it was me as a player, like, you know, keep the ball on the ground, pass the ball, move the ball quick, less touches. Just he's a real footballer manager. You know, he doesn't like to kick it long. He doesn't like flicks, and he's just so precise, and like he's just a really technical and footballer manager. And just like he obviously cares about working hard and this and that, but he puts football above anything. And I think in the past I've had managers where, you know, they care a lot about working hard and stuff like that instead of the actual football. But me as a player, I've always just been football, technical and stuff like that. And my dad would always agree that yeah, he'd agree as well, even now, that Fran's the best manager for me to develop as a player.
So Fran is I was going to say that, Fran is a manager that you can see yourself in his tactics?
Yeah, 100%. I've obviously only been here a month. I've only had one game. We play again this Sunday, so I still have a lot to prove, and I hope that I can prove what I can do. And I think the style of play really does suit me. So I just really want to prove to myself, people back home, the girls in the team, Fran, everyone, that I'm suited for this style of play. And yeah, I'm just really excited now, and we play on Sunday again, so I'm buzzing now to get going.
So you're then coming on to the making your debut. Aside from the result, how did you feel?
So it was a bit of a mad way to make my debut, obviously coming on and on Sunday against Glasgow, and we lost 3-0. It was disappointing, like from a team perspective. Obviously, you know, arguably the girls were saying our worst game, like one of our worst games ever. Which is mad to think that's my debut and it's everyone's worst game. But it was weird. A lot of the girls were a bit negative after, which is obviously normal, negative to be positive. But when I came on, I didn't have the best. I didn't play the best in the world, but I had a really, like, as soon as the whistle blew after, I had like a real adrenaline buzz and a real, like, I really want to help out. I feel like everything happens for a reason, and I've still got that like adrenaline feeling where I want to help out, and I want to, like, that defeat I think is a blessing for me, because it just, when I lose, it just makes me more motivated and more determined to, you know, win the next game and to do better. And I've just only positives for me from the game, even though the result wasn't what we wanted. It's all positives for me. So I'm just motivated right now. I can't wait for Sunday now to play our next game.
So what are the team's hopes for the rest of the season?
So obviously top two teams get Champions League, and of course we're going to go and hopefully come first. But I think as it stands now, being 5 points behind Glasgow and Rangers, we want that Champions League place. So even if we don't come first, I think we'd be happy with second. So at least we have Champions League. But we don't. That's our goal first, and like minimum second place. Because I definitely want Champions League, especially as my first year in a professional environment. It would be ideal for me to get Champions League straight away. It would be great.
Of course, and playing in a professional environment for a team like Celtic, do you think that will help you greatly in terms of furthering your national team career?
Yeah, so I was obviously in Ireland at 16, 17. I'm currently on standby now. They're in now. They're friendly tomorrow against Denmark and next week against Belgium. So obviously my goal is just be in and around that camp all the time, and I want to be, like, you know, starting in the next year, 2, 3, however long it takes. But I want to be in and around them camps every time. So I'm just going to keep pushing myself. And I think the fact that I'm now full time in a professional environment is definitely going to help, because, you know, back home I was only with Shelbourne playing semi, and like now I'm full time and it's all I want to do. And yeah, hopefully Vera, the manager, can see that. That's all I want to do is represent our country as well. So.
And have you noticed the step up in the standard of opposition in Scotland compared to in Ireland?
Yeah, so in Ireland, Wexford Youths and Peamount would have been the 2 top teams that we played against with Shells. And over here, it's obviously Glasgow and Rangers. We played Rangers in a friendly and pre-season there 2 weeks ago, and it was 1-1. And that's a good result. I was really, like, it was our first friendly, and I started as well, so I was really happy. But it was very, like, I could just feel the jump straight away. They moved the ball quick and very physical, I felt the level straight away within two minutes into the game. So I'm just glad that I've came over here, and, you know, I'm going to get used to that higher standard without even realising, you know, every day in training and playing matches, obviously. So yeah, I think that's definitely going to help me in my development as well.
Glasgow City have been the top dogs, and I think it's kind of made the professional men's teams like Celtic and Rangers, they've had to up the game a bit, and I think that stands the Women's League here in a lot of good stead, because you'll then have, instead of Glasgow City running away with it year after year, you've got a real title race this year. Hibs are usually a good team too, so I think it's definitely headed in the right direction.
100%. It kind of baffles me that Glasgow have won it 13 years in a row.
It's mad, isn't it, when you think of how like Celtic and Rangers.
Yeah, it's mental. Like, even playing both Rangers and Glasgow now, like, I would say that they're very 50-50. Like, I won't even know who's better, and it just baffles me that they've won it 13 years in a row, but Rangers have only recently gotten better and better. So I think it could be very tight between the 3 of us this year. And I won't be surprised if their 13 years in a row was stopped after this year. But we'll see.
It's definitely a good thing though that you've now got 3 fully fledged competitive teams fighting it out for the title. It's definitely a good thing. It improves the product greatly.
100%. I think we'd be arguably the underdogs out of the 3 as well. Which I usually do like that. We've obviously played Rangers, drew 1-1, and then Glasgow had bet us 3-0, but even we drew at Rangers, and Rangers bet Glasgow 5-0, and then Glasgow won us 3-0. So it's just, football's a funny game. Like, you really don't know until you play a team and what it's about. But I think us being the underdogs does definitely help us, like, when we go to play Rangers this season now, and when we play Glasgow again. I think it helps being the underdogs, and yeah, I like that feeling of being the top team, and yeah, I'm really happy.
So you touched on the women's game getting stronger, and I agree. So recently in England, they just got the big TV deal that's worth a few millions of pounds. Actually, I think it's really going to kick it on. Where do you see the women's game being in, say, 10 years' time?
Oh, that's unbelievable. I did see one of them. I didn't know it was 2. That's unbelievable. And even the likes of United playing on Old Trafford last week, weeks ago, stuff like that, I think really does help just the development of women's football. But in the next 10 years, I don't know where it will be in 10 years, but I just have really high hopes that every year, even, it's going to get better and better. And even the likes of, I know I'm not playing in Ireland anymore, but I hope that back home in Ireland, it's going to get to a professional level, you know. But I think every year, like, it really is just growing and growing and growing, and I think everyone will agree with that. Women's football is getting more popular, and I just wish it was sooner, but I'm not complaining that it's happening now. So hopefully in the next 10 years, you know, it's just more normal to to compare with men's as well, because obviously most of the talk, if you hear people talking about football, is about the men's, and I soon hope that it will be about women's as well.
So in my work, I'm a teacher, Izzy, and a couple of years ago we had the Women's World Cup, and I remember that we were allowed in class, and we were encouraged actually to show the women's games on the TV, like on the smartboards. And see, if you'd have gone back 5 to 10 years, no one would have been interested. But there seems to be on the cusp of a genuine, widespread interest in it, and it's really good to see actually. And that, as you say, football is becoming a far more feasible career path for young athletic girls, and I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, I love hearing things like that. Seeing young kids able to watch it in school and just little things like that. I would have loved if I was 6 years old and had to watch the women play. But yeah, I love hearing things like that. But 100%, even, our national team, Ireland national team, they get like tomorrow's game against Denmark live on RTE Player, and the views go up every single game. Like more and more people will be watching, more and more people will be supporting.
That's fantastic.
So I think it's just a diagonal line going forward, where it's just going up and up and up. And I'm really glad, because I'm still young, and I think every year I play more and more, that it's just going to get better and better. So I'm glad that I'm not like merely retiring, that I've missed this, but I'm going to have it in my career ahead of me. So I'm really glad now and grateful.
Brilliant. So then, away from football, what do you like to do? What are your hobbies as such? What keeps you busy when you're not playing?
So I'm actually still in college. I'm just finishing off the year online. I'm doing an arts degree and then hoping to go into primary school teaching. But I'm just finishing off this year online, and then I have exams next month, and then I'm deferring. Like, I'm going to just take a break for a year and just focus on football over here now, because I don't really have much hobbies. Like, I just have a full focus on football. Now that I'm training every day as well, I actually don't even have that much time to do much else. So if I'm not playing football, I'd be with the girls from football, talking about football probably. So I'm just at football, and I just think every time that I'm not playing football and I'm off the pitch, I'm always doing something that can help, like physically, mentally in football, where I'd be watching things, or I'd be, on my runs, or just everything. I think your diet, stuff like that, just plays its part off the pitch. But yeah, I don't have that much time anyways, so I'd just be calling back my family at home, my friends and stuff. So
you're very much eat, sleep, breathe, live football?
Very much so, nothing else.
Right, Izzy, that's a wrap from me. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. Look after yourself. Thank you. See you later. Thank you.
So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed listening. A massive thank you to Izzy for her time, and a special mention to her agent, Giulio Tedeschi, for setting it up. Quick credits to finish off as usual. The Lost for Words logo was made by AZR Creations, and the music and sound effects are from zapsplat.com. Please follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Lost for Words Pod. Please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, as it helps massively with the visibility. Finally, thank you for listening along to this episode. I am your host Jason, and I will see you next week for episode 6 of Lost for Words.